Hi, welcome back to the Monitoring Academy. My name is Mark Leftwich and I'm the Level 2 Team Lead for Support. Today I'm going to give you some tips, techniques and tools that you can use in your own environments to get a bit more business value out of our software. First thing we're going to do is go up this mountain. So at the base we're going to look at getting you some enablement and some tools. I'm going to show you some processes of how you can use these tools to give you a bit more value, and hopefully we'll get to the summit where you can actually do this yourself. So first place we're going to go is Backup Basecamp. Before you make any changes, you need to make sure that you've got all your key information saved. This is also a second stage to this, is that I'm trying to encourage more and more customers to do weekly backups at least of the TEMs and TEPs. They're the key components, it's where all of your customization lives, so you don't want to lose these. This process here will show you not only how you can back up your environment for upgrades and maybe if you're making some changes, but also just on a regular basis. So the first thing you need to know is what information is stored where. There's no point backing up the whole infrastructure if you're only going to do a little bit of work on the TEPs, for instance. So in the TEMS database, you've got situations, NSELLs, policies, anything along those lines. In the TEPs side of the database, you've got users, workspaces, queries, topology and views. You've got dynamic information as well in some of the databases. I just want to make sure that you know the difference so you know it's not important. Dynamic information is on-offline systems, live events, anything that is happening real time, coming into an environment that hasn't changed. All of the other information I've spoke about is static because you make a change, it will sit in the database in that state until you make the next change. You are the catalyst to that. The dynamic information is ITM doing what it does, is updating, producing reports, everything else, it's all dynamic. So if you take a backup and restore, all of your static information will be restored as it is, and all the dynamic information will self-populate again without you having to touch anything. Okay, so the PD Collect tool. Most people think this tool is just for collecting information to send into support. It's got far more uses than that, and I'm going to show you one or two here that you can use to help make your life a little bit easier. So first of all, what does PD Collect contain for those of you that haven't really dug through it that much? It contains all of the ITM information, operating system information, disk information, registry, running processes, you name it. It's a state capture of what's happening on that particular component at that time. If you were to run it on TEMS, for instance, though, it can actually back up the TEMS database. If you dig through one of the compressed outputs of a PD Collect, you'll find a TEMS directory. In that TEMS directory, you've got lots of files that start QA1. They'll start QA1 and end in .db or .index. So the database and index files, they are the TEMS database. They store everything you need in a TEMS to get it back up and running again. When you run the PD Collect tool from the command line, it'll actually take a live hot backup of all of those files and copy it to that directory. If you ever have problems with a TEMS and you need to recover a TEMS, you can stop the TEMS, take those backed up files, the QA1s, replace them over the top of the current TEMS, restart the TEMS will reinitialize those files, but you'll have all the information that we talked about that was static before back in place. Key point to probably mention here is you only need to back up the hub database. If you've got RTEMs, and most people have quite a few RTEMs in their environments, if something unfortunately happened to one of them, it's very rare, but if it did, you can actually just copy any RTEMs files back in place from the same environment and bring that RTEMs back up. When it comes back up, it will sync all the information it needs and replace everything in its database from the hub. So the key to backup here is the hub. It's the hub that stores all of your customized information. So just keep that in the back of your minds. Next is the second database we spoke about earlier. It's the TEPs database. So this is holding again all of your users, queries, workspaces, all that customization you've made and stored. It's in that TEPs database. There is a command line tool for backing this up as well. This is called migrate export. It's a migrate export, migrate import process. So export, take it out to back it up, import, restore it back in. It produces one single text file called saveexport.sql. Just so you understand the process behind what that backup is actually doing, if you look at the text file itself, you can actually see it's got a three-stage process. It will drop the table when you do the import, so there's no tables at all in that database. Second stage is it will create the table, so it replaces everything you had in your backup. It will restore it back to as it was. And last, it obviously inserts all the data that you backed up back into those tables. So just so you know that everything is going to be totally deleted if you do a import. The only reason I mention that is some people think that they can back up certain bits of text databases, and if they've made any changes when they import back in, it will keep the most recent changes. It doesn't, it will wipe everything and replace it. So just keep that in mind, which is another reason why regular backups are really important. Okay, so we've looked at TACMD, PD Collect and Migrate Export. There are two tools at the bottom there called SOAP and Spoofing. For those of you that haven't used them extensively before, they're both SQL tools. So you can put your own SQL in and you'll get some output back. For the purpose of this presentation, I'm going to be focusing more on the Spoofing side. There's going to be a few SQL statements I'm going to give you as we go through this. You can use them in SOAP, but again, just be aware whenever you run SQL through ATMs, it will add load to ATMs, so try and do it infrequently. Don't try and run it every 30 seconds, 5 minutes for big queries. Spread it out, give the ATMs a chance to actually process what it's doing. So we'll go up to the next stage in the mountain here, the equipment check. So this is where you need to make sure you've got the tools in your bag ready to produce results you need. Here you can see as a picture of a YouTube video. Likely you're watching me on YouTube at the moment. If you check the links below this video, you can see some links to the Monitoring Academy. I've made several hands-on type videos where we're in labs and I'm showing you processes of how things can be done. The 3 examples I'm going to give you in a minute, I've actually created videos already step by step showing you how to use the tools, how to implement them, and how to get the output back out. So if you're not sure when you're looking at the next stage of presentation how you're actually going to achieve that, look at some of the other videos. They'll give you everything you need to know. Okay, the 3 examples. So as I said, we're going to be using a tool called KDST-SNS. It's more commonly known as Spoofing. We're going to be putting some SQL through this tool to retrieve information out of ITM to try and give you some better business value. All of these examples have been created when I've been working on site with big customers. As I go around the different customers and we talk to each other, you're all doing very similar type stuff. You're all doing some sort of auditing, you're all doing some sort of health checking and sanity checking on environments. These 3 particular examples are all based around those. As I said, there is a lot more on the monitoring channel. If you go and have a look there, you can find more specific cases for things. So the first one we're going to look at today is which situations are started and stopped and live. It's the live situations table in the TEMS. So some of the reasons you might want to do this. One is that you can sanity check events compared from your TEPs in one hand to your TEMS in another. If you think you've got a sync problem maybe between TEMS and TEPs, you can use this methodology to check it. Very, very rare. Haven't seen one of them in a couple of years now, but just in case you know how to do it. Second one is you can make sure that all your RTEMs are feeding events back into the hub TEMS. So this process will actually show you where the events come from. If you're not sure if all your TEMs are sending in events, this one single output that you're going to drop, you can quickly check you've got event from each type of TEMS. Acknowledgements and receive. So if you're using bidirectional sync with Omnibus, maybe even Tech, if you're using Tech, come on, it's old, let's uplift it, upgrade it. But you can check if you've got users in the consoles and Omnibus acknowledging events, you can actually check that those events are getting back into the TEMS database and you can see an acknowledgement there. It just helps you sanity check the bidirectional sync of Omnibus and ITM. The last one is testing events. So if you think you've got an agent that isn't firing events, you can actually test fire an event from one of those agents. You can use this process to check to see if the events made the RTEMs the agent's connected to. You can then do it again on the hub to see if the events there, and finally the TEPs. Because you can see the whole chain of where the events are going, you can actually work out which component it's broken down on and you can focus your investigation there. It can be a really good PD technique just to narrow down your field a little bit. So the important bit to understanding this is the output. What we're going to do is run some SQL. This will pull columns back and drop them into a text file. This is what each column means so you can understand and read the output. The first one is the delta stat. This is the most important column for this particular table. This shows the status of the events that have come in live. So I'll come back to that in a minute so we can go into a little bit more detail. Global timestamp, really important, especially if you're tracing events through the infrastructure. You can match events by time. Node is the endpoint the name's associated with, so that will be the actual name of the agent, host name of the agent. You've got origin node, or through node, you might hear it sometimes named. This is the TEMS that the agent is directly connected to. So if your agent is connected to an RTEMS, the through node here will be an RTEMS. If your agent for some reason is connected to a hub, then the through node will be the hub name. It's a simple way of checking where the agent's connected to as well. You've got situation name and full name of the situation if it's gone beyond the given boundaries, 621 and above for that, so most people should now be on far later code than 621. And last is the type, if your situation is a pure or sampled. Okay, so as I mentioned, the delta stat column, this is the one you need to pay special attention to. So there are, I think, about 10 different delta stats. These are the most common used. So you've got Y, which is event raised, A, acknowledged event. If you have an event raised, you'll get a Y record in the database. If you then acknowledge it, you'll get a second record or a second line in that database, one with a Y, one with an A. If then for some reason the condition that was true becomes no longer true, you will get a reset or a close event come in. That is an N. When the N event comes in, it will wipe out any A's or Y's raised or acknowledged events from the table, and it will replace them. This is just to keep the table clean and make sure it doesn't go out of sync. The last one as well, as you sometimes see, especially if you're using Omnibus with people that acknowledge an event and then retract it because they actually acknowledge the wrong event, you can see an E in there sometimes. Not as common, but if you've got a big enterprise environment, you may see that a little bit more frequently. Okay, so the actual output itself. First thing, top left corner, that is the SQL that I've been using to pull these. So if you want to do these in your own environment, sandbox, play around with it, that's the SQL you need. At the bottom, you can see the output. So the first column there is the delta stat column. That has got a Y for a raised record, and I've also acknowledged it so you can see it's got an A underneath it. If you follow the rows across, you can see they match identically from that point. Third column in is the through node. So these agents are connected directly to a hub in this case. So it's got hub_Cantonar. Fourth column is the agent name or the host name of the agent. You can see it's a Windows agent as well with the NT on the end. And then the last two columns are the situation name, the short name and the full name. Okay, so that was the first example we're going to use. Second example is which agents are assigned to each of the NSELLs in one query. This is a very popular one that we designed. It's purely so you can do a little bit of sanity checking on your environment. It's very easy to miss an agent from an MSL, or maybe you've got too many, you've got too much monitoring going on certain things. It's a very quick way. If you can drop it all in one go, you can then see how it works, and also you can play around with filters if you put it in a spreadsheet editor, for instance, to quickly break down systems. So first reason you do this, to check that all the agents that you think, if you've got monitoring on, have got monitoring, are in the MSLs they should be. The second one is to see if there's any missing. You might think you've got a new environment come on, maybe you virtualize some new systems, they've come online to ITM. Has anyone actually added them to MSLs? This is the quick way of checking things like that. So again, we're going to be pulling columns with SQL from one of the terms tables. We're going to be looking at node list. This is the name of the MSL itself. If it has a star in front of the MSL name, that is a product provided MSL. If it hasn't got a star and it's just text, that's one of your own customized. I'll show you an example of both in a second. Second column there will be node. This is the name of the agent that's associated with that MSL. And last is node type. This will always be M for these tables. It just shows that the agent is actually a member of an MSL. So the output here, again on the left hand side, that is the exact SQL I used to pull this output. You can see from the columns, first column MSL, you can see the top 5, 10, 15 there are all product provided because they've got that star in front of them. The bottom two, I've highlighted one in yellow for you. You can see as a custom one, it's got no star. It's called mark_MSL1. And you can see that it's got one agent assigned to it at the moment called Pinky, and the last column is an M because it is a member of an MSL. So by pulling those, you can see very quickly what's in your MSLs and work out what you're missing and what you need to add. Okay, last example we're going to look at here. This has got quite popular, especially on upgrades. This is where we're going to pull back not only the OS levels of all the systems in your environment, but also the ITM level of each. So this can be quite popular if you are looking to do an audit of an environment and see if you've got operating systems on older versions. You can actually get that information from ITM. A lot of people didn't know that. You can. It will save you a lot of digging around. Second place is that you actually need to know what levels your agents are on. Especially banks have criteria in place that you can't go too far behind current monitoring release. This is a good way of checking that you actually have got up-to-date agents and whittling out those that are on old. This sort of process I'd recommend you do every couple of months just to check where you are, especially if you've got upgrades and remote deployments going on. If any fail and you don't realise, or maybe people are moving environments between systems, then that's the sort of thing you can easily flag when older code comes into your environment. Okay, so the first we're going to look at again is how to break down the columns. You can see here the key ones here are probably node, the actual agent name, and also version at the bottom. That will show you the name of the ITM agent, the host name, and also what version that's running on. If I show you the output here, you can see again left hand side SQL I've used, copy it, use it. First column is the operating and system level. So here I've got an AIX and a few Windows systems. You can see the levels of those systems straight off. So if you've got an audit to do, you can actually use ITM to audit your own enterprise and pull back all the operating systems really quickly. Second column in there is the host name of the agent that's on that system, so you know which system it actually relates to. You can see there on the fourth column you've got a list of whys. That shows if the agent is online or offline. Fifth column, you've got the TEMS the agent is connected to, or the through node, as we mentioned before. And the last column is the ITM version. You see you've got version release there and maintenance at the end. So very quick way of pulling everything back in one environment. Again, drop it into a spreadsheet editor. It is just a text file at the end of the day, the output. So you can put that in there, filter it down by systems, maybe release type, whatever you need. Quick way of doing what you want though. Hopefully that'll save you a bit of time. Okay, so now we have shown you all of the techniques you need to use to be able to do this in your own environments. As I mentioned before, if you go to the Monitoring Academy on YouTube, there's videos of how to do all of these step by step if you need to know a little bit more. Also, if you've got any comments, please feel free to comment in the boxes below, or if you've got any wish list of videos that you'd like to see here to help you try and achieve something in your environments, let me know, drop it in the comments box and I'll try and build you one. Thank you very much for watching, appreciate your time. Thank you for watching this video at the C&SI Monitoring Academy. We'd definitely appreciate your feedback, so please feel free to use the comments box below. We'd also love you to click the thumbs up if you appreciated the video. We have added several helpful links to all our content. I would definitely recommend you check out the blogs on DevWorks. Take care.